Yes, it is Wednesday, and yes, we are still absolutely doing 4 videos with our cosmetics rose stuff this week because it's just Wednesday. And I can do things. I can do hard things. We might end up getting 2 videos in, each day or like today and tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see how that all goes down really because it depends on how much of a bear it's going to be to edit all of these things, for the cosmetics thing. And I will tell you more about all the things that I have to edit and make and stuff for this week, in a minute. But before I do, hello, I am Mrs. Soap and Clay. Let's make stuff. How's it going, Sudzers? Welcome back to the channel. You are at Soap and Clay, where we make all the soapy things. And you are here for another week with our rose line, so rose and rose hips, and we are going to be focusing on how we can incorporate rose and rose hip into our cosmetics. For cosmetics, they're obviously going to be a little bit different from soap in that these are leave-on products. And so while, yes, we have talked about this before, soaps, rinse-off product, doesn't mean that the stuff that you put in it won't have a benefit to the skin. But with your cosmetics, this is where you really get to fine-tune what this does to the skin. And so you can be looking for, making like a serum or a lotion for your face that helps out with dryness or rosacea or, acne or all these things. Also drug claims, so don't make any of those. But you do want to pay attention to the ingredients that go into your leave-ons to ensure that the actives that are within them are going to be the best for whatever skin condition or concern that you are tackling. Now, today we are going to be working with a cosmetic that a lot of the times people don't realize is a cosmetic, and those are bath bombs. Now, definitionally speaking, obviously, bath bombs are cosmetics because they're not soap. They don't fit any of the qualifications to be soap. And so that is considered a cosmetic. So, of course, you do have to make sure that your labeling is all up to par. Speaking of labeling, while we are making these bath bombs, I'm going to talk about how I would be labeling these infusions that we have done. So the coffee butter, the coffee extracts, the rose hip, etc., and so forth on your labels, be it soaps or cosmetics, because I prefer just to go the cosmetic labeling route for everything, just to keep it simple while we make the bombs. Now, the reason why I'm making bath bombs within all of this is because, well, people like to use bath bombs sometimes, kind of. Have you noticed that there's actually a decline? Pretty big decline in bath bomb users recently. I think it's definitely going out of fashion, but I don't know. You can talk to me about that in the comments. We are going to be making bath bombs because I want to continue on with that crazy extra butter bomb recipe thing that I started a couple months ago because I saw this thing where people would put in like a half of a cup of butter. We're not going to do that. We're not going full ham, but I want to include the rose butter and the rose oil into this bath bomb in my appropriate amounts, so it's not just an oil slick at the bottom of the tub, and talk about whether or not there's going to be a benefit to the skin in doing this. So we're going to get to the making of the bath bombs, and we're going to hopefully talk about all of that there, although bath bomb videos are historically super short, so I don't know if I'll get to it all. Okay, so today we are doing some bath bombs using Parton Prince's beautiful molds. Actually, I love all these molds. They're all the flat kind, and I'm pretty good at the flat kind, so I'm really excited about that. And so what I am doing with the molds right now is I am just painting the inside of them before I make the bath bombs to see if the color transfer is going to be good enough to, actually work out. I don't know. No high hopes for that because I'm not super great at decorating bath bombs, but for the recipe, we are going to be incorporating rose in a number of ways. We are going to be using 2 cups baking soda, 1 cup citric acid, so a 2-to-1 standard ratio for that. We will be putting in an arrowroot powder in 1/2 cup. We will also be incorporating 1 tablespoon of rose water and 1 tablespoon of rose butter, and 1 tablespoon of rose hip butter. And then you have your 1 tablespoon of scent. And that is it for the bath bomb recipe. And these are molding very well. This is you're definitely going to have more wetness in a recipe like this because we do have the extra oil in all of that. So the butters. Normally I do 1 tablespoon of oil. So this is 2 tablespoons. I've kind of found that this is going to be the sweet spot for a recipe like this. If you're going to be incorporating your actual butters into the bath bomb recipe itself and not in as like an embed or an added like a dip or something at the end. Just because if you do much more, you're going to end up with an oil slick at the bottom of your tub, and that is not a fun time for anybody at all. Also, look at how cute all of these molds are. I'm totally blown away by it. They're just adorable molds. They were some of them were January molds, some of them were February molds. And here we are, end of February, showing you the bath bomb molds and the bath bombs that have been shipping all month over at soapandclay.com. So there's that. Now, for the actual recipe itself, do I think that this is going to provide any sort of a benefit? What do we know about rose oil and its benefits? Antioxidant rich, it is good for skin softening, for elasticity, for moisturizing, for collagen boosting, and yes, a good anti-inflammatory. For rose hip, much the same, very high in your vitamins that are going to be helping out with cell turnover, definite regenerative properties, all of the jazz. That said, this is 2 tablespoons of a rose butter or a rose hip butter into a full batch of bath bombs. Now, this particular size batch gets you about 5 of your standard size, Mondo bath bombs, your spherical bath bombs that come in at around 6 to 7 ounces apiece. And so 2 tablespoons throughout that. Is that going to provide a benefit? I don't think that you're going to be getting any benefit like as far as collagen and skin elasticity and all of the things outside of the kind of obvious your skin is more elastic and supple when your skin is moisturized. So you will be getting the moisturizing benefit of that. But that said, the butters themselves were created using a cocoa butter that was infused with the rose and the rose hip. And so you're getting the benefits of your cocoa butter as far as the moisture and everything goes, in addition to what we were able to extract from the rose, which was a pretty arduous task, if you remember, and what we were able to extract from the rose hip, which was definitely an easier serve. So is there a benefit outside of just the moisturizing levels? You're sitting in a tub with, let's say, 1 7-ounce bath bomb, or in these cases, they're about 4 ounces each. They're smaller bombs for sure. I'm going to go with no. I think you're going to be getting the moisturizing properties, certainly, because you're, sitting there and stewing in the tub. But for the rest of it, I don't believe that that's going to be the case. This is not a direct skin contact. This is not a remember with the skin barrier, I mean, I know people like to say a lot of things about what the skin barrier can and cannot do, but for the most part, the skin is kind of designed to keep most things out. It is the body's first line of defense. And so the likelihood that you're going to be getting any of this penetrating to a meaningful level with this type of application in a water heavily diluted, pretty unlikely. So I'm going to say that for this particular cosmetic, nope, it's going to be just for the moisturizing properties that, again, you're more getting from the cocoa butter than you would be from the rose hip or the rose. Now, does that mean that you should not include, rose or rose hip into your products? No, I mean, I think you totally can. I think it's great. It's a good label appeal for sure. For if you're not doing your own infusions as far as the rose goes, I wouldn't do it. It's wildly expensive. Rose essential oil is crazy expensive, and that just doesn't make any sense within a bath bomb for sure. But as far as if you're doing your own infusions, that can be kind of expensive too, depending on how you're sourcing your roses. And remember, a whole lot of roses are required for each and every infusion. So this isn't an easy peasy process, especially when you factor in the amount of time it takes to do all of the infusions themselves when it comes to rose. Now, these have been set up. I did all of the bath bombs, the individual molds, all just one after the other, and then unmolded them in the order essentially that I created them. Allowing them to set up within the molds themselves really does help out a lot with these 3D molds before unmolding. And so for that reason, it's great. Like these all worked out really well with the exception of this, champagne bottle. that I clearly had issues with. So that's a good pro tip for 3D molds, I guess. And by pro tip, I mean I am now using 3D molds because it's fun, and I have a subscription box from Part and Prints, and that's fun too. I'm not actually a professional. This is just what I've noticed. So with the actual ingredients list and what you should be doing for your bath bomb labels, first up, it is a cosmetic, so you will need to follow appropriate cosmetic labeling guidelines if you live in the United States. And so you're going to be listing all of the ingredients in order from biggest, like most in there, to smallest. And so that does become a question, and I've been having a ton of questions about that for both the coffee and the rose throughout the videos that we've been doing just generally in regards to soaps and all the jazz. What do you use? How would you label this? Now, for me, I would go ahead in this particular recipe, do it biggest to smallest. So, baking soda, citric acid, arrowroot powder. And then you're going to be putting, I would put in cocoa butter because that's the type of butter it was used. And then, rose hip oil or rose oil because you did meaningfully extract that, but you did extract it in a very small amount. The same would be true, I think, of everything that you would do for a soap as well. Include whatever you infused it in. So if you infused it in a shea butter, list that. Like I did the green tea seed oil for the rose and the rose hip infusions. And so I would say that. I would say that it's a green tea seed oil and then a rose oil and a rose hip oil. As far as exact amounts and how much you have in your recipes, for this one it's pretty easy because you know that it's going to be the smallest amount likely. So you're going to be doing even below your fragrance would be your rose hip and your rose oils that you were able to extract, because it is kind of a pain in the butt to extract. And I can reasonably assume that in 1 tablespoon of a rose hip butter or a rose butter, I'm not getting more than a full tablespoon, obviously, of the rose oil or the rose hip oil within that infusion. So it would be a very small amount. For the bigger amounts, if you're doing it in soap, I would be calculating it at the amount that you put into the butter. So if you used a rose oil and combined it with a shea butter, 60-40, so 60% of that rose butter is shea butter. So it obviously hits closer to the top in your ingredients list, depending on how much of the butter you used overall. And the rose actual incorporation would be at the bottom, if that makes sense. It's going to be probably in the soap categories. If you're labeling per cosmetic guidelines, it is going to be closer to it's going to be certainly before, so ahead of your enhancements as far as your kaolin clays and your colors and your scents, to that certainly, but it will still be closer to the bottom of the label. But net for all of that, I would definitely blow it out and make sure that you're not just saying a rose butter or a rose oil and including what kind of oil or butter you are infusing it into. To that, I would also say that that's what you should be doing if you are purchasing any of these butters. Look at your MSDS, look at your data pages for these particular products that you're purchasing, determine how much or determine what actually goes into them and list that out. Remember with the coffee butter, we learned that it was essentially just a kind of cheap oil, like a soybean shortening, and then like less than 10% of the actual rose oil or coffee oil, excuse me, that went into it. So I would say definitely blow those out too, even if you duly purchase them, because your customers should know what they're putting on their skin. And there it is, a whole bunch of adorable bath bombs. They're absolutely gorgeous. I love that Part and Prince is moving into the easier to use bath bomb molds for the sub box for sure. It's really, really fun for me to be using ones that I know I can actually, get out of the mold. And so that's been great. For the rest of it, I mean, yeah, there is going to be a benefit to the skin somewhat because you are in a bathtub, you are soaking. But primarily when it comes to rose hip, the biggest benefit you're going to be getting within your bath is going to be the moisturizing properties that are going to be coming from not only the rose or rose butter oil or the rose hip oil or butter, but also from the oils themselves and the butters themselves that you have used to create your infusions. For sure. For the amount of water, like 1 tablespoon of rose water, what is that? That's nothing. That's a nothing thing. Water is just going to be used to keep everything together in a recipe like this, so not a big deal. For the rest of it, I mean, I don't know. I don't think that there's much of a benefit in putting expensive ingredients into your bath bombs like that. But, if you want to, and for the label appeal, it's certainly there. So there's that. What do you guys think? Bath bombs, going out of style, all the things. Let me know. Let's talk about it in the comments. Thank you guys for existing and for being here. Thank you to the Sudsers who are in the Discord going, hey, where is Mrs.? What's going on? Sorry, it's been a time. And these are not things that most people care about. So if you are a person that cares about it, if you're a membered Sudser and you care about it, I am putting out a members only video today where effectively I'm just, sitting and just complaining the whole time. So that's a fun one. I'm also talking about Project Soapway. So it's all kind of lumped in. So, go watch that one if you want. If you're into it, that'd be cool. For the rest of you who are not membered Sudsers or are not Sudsers because you haven't clicked that subscribe button and, liked and commented so we can vet you and decide whether or not you get to hang out at our very cool kids, table. Hi, you exist here. You're people. Probably, So thanks for being here. I appreciate it. I'm going to go. I've got a lot of fun stuff planned for this week. We are going to be doing serums. We're going to be doing face creams. It's all a thing. And so I need to go do the editing that I talked about at the beginning. So I'm going to do that. But I will see you guys all again tomorrow for another round of rose/rose hip, infusions, cosmetic. Not soapy. Soapy fun. Bye.